Okay, I'm going to try and video some of this. I keep promising I'm going to do this and I never remember. What I'm doing here is getting ready. I want to laminate these pieces. Build up this face of this piece by about 1/8 of an inch. And it's complicated because doing what I'm trying to do on this piece, the piece isn't flat. It's flat up to there, and then it has a big radius. So I'm trying to add the material so that I can wrap it slightly around the radius, so when I reshape it, it continues to have a nice radius instead of a big gap where the flat goes away from the radius. Right now I made some 1/16 inch thick pieces of poplar. Took the saw and I ripped them down so they're only a 1/16 of an inch thick, thinking that I can bend them if they're thin enough. And what I've been doing the last few days, I've took a thick heavy towel like a beach towel, and I wet the material directly. I put it on the towel, rolled it up in the towel, and then soaked the towel. It's been sitting in the soaked towel now for like 3 days, so that hopefully it makes it more pliable, so that I can clamp it kind of against the radius, so that it forms to the radius, and then glue it. Shape it once it's dry, once the glue is dry. So before I glue it, obviously I need to take all the finish. There's stain and urethane on these pieces. So what I'm doing right now is sanding it so that the edges that I'm going to glue are raw wood material. And I'm making a fixture so that I can hopefully attach the laminate pieces in the places where they go. I'll show you more of that in a second. But anyway, just to show you what this involves. Okay. So this is what this looks like. Now that's where the laminate's going to go, right there. And like I said, I want to fold it. Oops, right there. Sorry. I want to fold it around so that I can reshape this out to the extra 1/8 of an inch and continue, with this radius up. Extend the radius right to the face of the new material. So when I put the new material, I got to be able to wrap it a bit. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I made a fixture so that I can apply the laminate, the thin pieces. I'll show you the other side of that. Is the part you want to see. Hang on a second. Okay, so here's what I'm doing here. I'm going to attempt to laminate this this is not the material I'm using. Like I said, this is what I cut the material from, but this is like 3/8 of an inch thick. The stuff that I'm using is 1/16 of an inch thick. And what I'm going to try and do is put it there and glue it on that edge, 2 layers of it, and bring it up and hopefully have it wrap over the top enough so that I can reshape this and end up with that shape. So what I've done here, you see that pencil line there? Right there? See that pencil line right there? That's where the metal is at the top of that back panel behind the door on the cab of the truck. Is that pencil mark right there. So the laminate that I'm going to put on there has to be just above that line. And it follows that line. You see there's a step right here. Can you see that? It follows that line, same line, all the way across the top of the door. And that's that line right there. So what I've done here is I put these little pieces here. See, that's just below the line. I want to put the laminate on there so that when it's all dried and stuck on there and dried up, glued, then I can trim it to its final exact location. Right at that corner. Only that corner is going to be out 1/8 of an inch further. So when I put all these little pieces, so I can bring the laminate over here and make it touch these pieces and put some brads You know, the little tiny wire nails, these, not with the heads on, these. I got a whole box of different sizes of these brads. Like here, see, 1 inch 18 gauge wire. So I'm gonna tack the laminate on the bottom, and then figure out some way of pulling it to that shape, probably with zip ties or something. Because what I'm thinking is using 2 or 3 pieces of this. Again, you know, put the laminate there, put this against, put the laminate on here, tack it to the bottom of this wood piece, and then put this over it, and put another one of these above this, so that it you know, when I put the zip tie, it'll follow this shape. Something along that line. You know, I'm gonna maybe get some alternate pieces, but I think that's what I'm gonna use. Use 2 or 3 pieces that same thickness. I might even rip that in half, so that, you know, maybe the pieces put up here that I'm going to go up here, so that it'll follow that contour, make them narrower, half that height. So when I put the zip tie on there, it'll pull the laminate around that radius, tight around that radius. So I'm going to have to play with that and see. You know, who can show you how to do this? You got to figure out your own way. Okay, I'm putting all these little, I don't know, pillow blocks, I don't know for a better term, that I'm going to stand the laminated pieces on top of to get the right line on the bottom. Just wanted to show you what that amounts to. I'm just using these little wire brads to fasten them to these plywood blocks I put on here. Hopefully I'm not getting in the way of the camera. These things are only 3/4 of an inch. The nails are only 3/4 of an inch tall, so you put your fingers there and you smash your fingers while you're trying to start them. So you got to use one of these. Well, you don't gotta, but it's easier. I inherited that from my dad. Doesn't say anything on there, but it's a little trim hammer. He was a finished carpenter, and I love this hammer. I mean, when you're doing trim work, casings around windows and doors and base and all that kind, it's perfect. You don't, you know, make all kinds of big marks when you miss a nail and stuff like that. It's just nicely balanced. It's a fun hammer to use. It really is. If you get enjoyment out of doing that kind of stuff. Okay. So there you go. So now when I bring the laminate in, I'll stand the laminate up on top of these pieces. And when I've adjusted these so they're a tiny bit down below the final line that I want. So once it's all glued and the glue is dry, then I sand it nice and even with the edge that's already there. Okay, so there's the material that I want to try and put on there. See? It's all wet. It bends a little. I'm not sure it's going to bend enough. I'm afraid it's going to break. But you know what? I'll play with it. I'll try it. I might have to bend it a little or heat it so it steams or do something. I don't know. We're going to find out. So that's what I'm going to do, like that. You see? I'm going to clamp it there. And then try and get it to bend over this radius. It might. With a tall piece and a short piece. It might. Let's give it a shot. So I'm wondering if I should use these little nails. Some of these wire nails have a head, and some of them are just straight, like a finish nail, no head. And I'm thinking I ought to use this, well, I ought to use the one without the head. They aren't going to hold as well. I think the nail will pull right through. And what I was thinking, so when I go to shape this, if it's got the nail in there, I'm just going to probably drive the nail into the wood so that I can finish it. The nail will be too deep. It won't bother the shaping. So I'm concerned about using the one with the head, but I can probably, the heads are small, I could probably drive them in too. The other thing I got to do is look at the glue and see if you can glue this the wood and the wood is wet. I don't know if it needs to be dry, if wet matters. The glue is water soluble, so that shouldn't matter. Bond superheat. I gotta go read the. I gotta go under a magnifying glass and read the label. All right, hold on. Okay, well, I just looked at the label, and the label says you're supposed to be gluing it to dry. It's supposed to be dry when you glue it. So what I'm gonna do, I think, is clamp it here and see if I can get it to conform to the shape of the base piece, and then I'll just leave it clamped to the base piece until it dries, even if it takes a day or two. At least it'll have the shape, hopefully. And so, like I said, then I can let it dry and glue it. So, again, I'm going to give that a try. Can you see that? These are 3/4 inch number 20 wire brads. See how tiny they are? That's better. Wasn't all the way down. Yeah, that's sticking out, so that's not good. Could work. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna rip one of these in half, so I make skinny pieces that will better conform to the radius. Well, I should show you, I guess. This looks like it could work. I wonder. These zip ties aren't that strong. You know, when there's a lot of technology to zip ties. When you buy them, you buy the different width, you buy what kind of retainer it has, and you buy them according to how much strength they have before they break when you tighten them. And you buy them according to how much you want to spend too. There's cheap ones and there's rather expensive ones. So anyway, I'll show you this up close. Looks like it could work. Okay, for now all I'm doing is, since you're supposed to do the gluing with the material dry, it's on there wet. And I'm trying to, what I think I'm going to do is leave it on there so that it hopefully dries to that shape, so that I can glue it with it kind of pre-shaped. You see the zip ties are pulling the piece over. You can see how it's bent over there. And I think that's far enough up that radius. I wonder if I put another piece if it would do anything. But you know what? You see how much that bends? Maybe you don't. You see how much that still bends? It'll actually go all the way over the radius if I had some way of clamping it there. But I think if I can make it hold this shape when it's dry, I might try and put another piece under there and see if I can get that to push down a little more. We'll see what I can come up with. Okay, well, I'm taking this apart, and as you can see, it's holding the shape. It's the next day from when I put this on here. It's dried, and it would appear as though it is holding the shape. See, I had this end piece tied around here. Where can you see that? Right there. And I took that off because that's what was holding it, and it stayed there. It stayed there. And I'm cutting these loose, and it's staying there. There you go. It's following the radius. Pretty good. Happy about that. Okay, well, with all the zip ties gone, I got one tiny little nail right there, not even all the way driven in. One nail there, kind of in the middle, not driven in. Another one there, not driven in. And you see, it's nicely following the shape of the header. So I'm really happy with that. Let's do the other side and see if it matches. Hello there. Welcome back to Blue Heinz Garage. Today's the 12th. Monday, August 12th. And you can see I've got these, I just did this one today. I got these glued up. They're laminated. Do you see the two pieces? They did this one last week, Friday I think it was. So that one's glued and ready to start shaping. This one got glued today. Supposed to sit there for 4 hours with it clamped. This is the clamp. It's that webbing that you use for under foam rubber and automotive seat cushions, or I guess maybe even household upholstery sometimes. Used like a spring, you know, under a seat cushion. So that's what I thought of to do this, since it's got this big radius on it here. It's not an easy thing to clamp. But looks like it's stuck real good. Really happy with it. So tomorrow I will start shaping it. You see, I got to, the top doesn't need to get built up. So all of this here on the top of the radius comes back down to the stained wood. And then the radius, obviously with the extra material, goes out beyond that. So it's going to be a little time consuming. We see what I got here. I got this bolted to this piece of plywood, and I'm going to put one of those clamps right there on each end of this, so it's fastened to the top of the bench, and then I can plane the top till, like I said, I get down to the till I get down to the stained part, and then start reshaping that radius where it comes out to the edge. You know, blending it into the old piece. Should be fun. I'll see if I can. Maybe what I'll do is I'll set up the tripod and put you on time lapse so you can, if you care, you can watch later. Well, now I would have to say that's a pretty good start. That probably took 20 minutes. Did it with the block plane first till I got down to where it was hitting the brown material, you know, the stained material, and then took off with the palm sander from there. Now I got to do the radius more. It needs more radius. What I'll do now from here on. Now I have this bolted to the piece of plywood, and it works great for doing the top. Piece doesn't move around. It's nice and stable. You can do your thing. The rest of it, I think what I'm going to do is put it in the vise right here in the center. In the vise there, similar to that, only facing up, so I can do the rest of that radius. Make it, blend it right in. Because that, I mean, you can't feel a thing there. That's going to work out nice. When I soften this quite a bit more, you know, bring that radius down to like it was before. It was down to here somewhere. You can see it's down to about here. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's going to work out real well. If the other one does as well as this one does, I'm going to be real happy. All I got to do is take my time and not go too far with the sander. And I don't think that's going to be that easy. I think that'll be tough to screw up. I really do. It doesn't cut that quick. Okay, well, I started with the other side, actually, which is right here. See, I got the radius already started. The top part of the radius is already blended in. And then I decided I should attach the front and the back so that I could use the front and the back as guides to how tall the vertical should be below the radius. And I got sidetracked and ended up working on this side. Cutting this. See, this had to get cut so that the added piece had to get cut so it fit over the top of the metal. And you see that's done. So like I said, I ended up switching gears. So that I still got to blend the top part, the radius on the top on this one. So I'm going to, at this point now, I'm going to go back and continue where I left off with this. I sanded the bottom part, the part that goes over the top of the door. That's already sanded. After I attached it here, I sanded the bottom part. And then I sanded the bottom of the other one and got sidetracked and continued with the other one. So now I got to take this off. I know the dimensions that I need. I got to transfer that to the piece that I'm shaping and continue with the shaping on the radius on that one, and then cut that one where it goes over the metal behind the door. So, but not today, tomorrow. Okay, well, here, let's start with this. This is now ready to go back on the top of the cab. Only reason I'm waiting and not putting it up there is because Scott's got to do some welding on the back corners. I'll show you that in a minute. But you see it's shaped, it's extended, and I got an 1/8 inch extra on the sides of these upper pieces. and they're all shaped, they're all blended in. That extension is all blended in. The corners are all done. That's some Bondo I put on there just to fill in any voids and stuff like that, because when the fabric's on, you don't want to see the voids and lumps and bumps. So that part of this is done. So now it is fit to the truck so that it runs along the top of the door with a nice even gap. And when it comes here, it's got this tiny little gap here that we're going to fill with seam sealer. Sorry, it's got this tiny little gap on top of this that we'll fill with seam sealer. And what we're going to do, the reason the top's not on, is see these little edges here? It looks like it's got a crimp or something in it from when it was installed in the factory, and this might have had got a couple little dimples like holes in it. We're going to fill all of that so that these half rounds go right to the top, you know, in a nice flow, you know what I mean? No dents, grooves, bumps, whatever. Just straight to the top of half round. So Scott's going to come and weld that, and then I'll put the top on because you don't want the wood next to all that heat that he's going to create. What I'm doing right now is, if you recall, I think I showed you this. I extended this. This is a 32 style dash Brookville piece for being used in a Model A. It looked pretty ugly over here because there was this big gap here. So I extended it, made a pattern, extended it, and now that looks pretty good. But the dashboard piece goes over the top of it, and the dashboard piece has a fair size gap in that too. So now that the piece behind it is adjusted, what do you want to call it? Whatever you want to call it, massaged, so it fits right. Now this piece looks ugly, so what I'm doing is extending this one too, doing the same thing on this I did on the other one, the one that's behind it, because now you see the one behind it, because this one's got a big gap. So what I'm doing here, you see I got a good sized piece fitted to this, only because the piece that's going to go on here is probably less than 1/4 of an inch, and you don't want to try and weld that because it all starts melting while you're trying to weld it. So you weld a bigger piece, and then once the bigger piece is cut, this will be the outside of that, the addition. And you see I've got it set up here, so I put that where the marks line up, and that's the pattern of what I have to cut off, where I have to cut it off. Like this. See how this sits here? So sorry, I finished that piece, the wooden part, and forgot to set the camera up. You know, I was anxious because I was getting a little exciting for me to see it done, and I forgot all about setting the camera up. The tripod was right here too. And this isn't showing you any action, but it is showing you what I'm doing. So like I said, I'll do my best, try to remember to set the camera up when I'm doing some more of this. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye. Well, see, here's the extension I was telling you about. And right now those are all just tacked. I'm gonna grind that, and the metal's turned a little bit while he was welding it, so I'm gonna get it all nice and flat, grind it, body work it so it's flat, and then he'll do a bead, a total length bead on there, you know, tie it all together. This one here he's just started, so he's done the two ends. Right now I've got more of these clamps, but they're in use, so I'm moving the two clamps now, or at least one, towards the middle to make sure the center is flush, lined up. And then he'll finish. He'll do some more tacks on that one. Here's the progress on these. You see how this now is even from all the way to the top, no indentation at the top. And that one, there's a nasty glare on my screen here. I'm having a hard time seeing what I'm shooting. That one's nice and even. And Scott's working on that one over there. I'll show you that one. Hang on a second. This one was nasty because it had a whole bunch of hollow in the center. I was trying to clean it and get all the paint and stuff out of it, and the more I tried to clean it, the more the hole was getting bigger and bigger. So he had to fill a whole bunch of that, and still filling a whole bunch of that.
Yeah, it was the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah, so all of this shit, when it's all done, nobody knows the difference. It's all history.
It's all top secret.
Right, history's buried. But it's got to get done.